Thanks for joining us. We are staying with the cheering news for workers in Nigeria as the National Assembly earlier today passed the new National Minimum Wage Act 2019 Amendment Bill without delay. The bill, which scaled first, second and third readings just minutes after it was transmitted by President Bola Tinubu, was instantly passed by the upper and lower chambers. President Tinubu's request has been committed to the Committee of the Whole for the lawmakers to deliberate and assess the content of the bill. The President and the leadership of the organized labor had last Thursday agreed on 70,000 naira as the new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. The resolution between the government and labor leaders followed series of talks after months of failed meetings between the organized labor and the tripartite committee on minimum wage constituted by the President in January. In a unanimous vote after a close consideration in the Committee of the Whole, the National Minimum Wage Bill scaled third reading and was passed. Well, let's now bring in an HR practitioner, Femi Mokekan, for more on this. Mr. Mokekan, it's official. The new minimum wage bill has now been passed by both chambers of the National Assembly, and it was just within minutes of being transmitted by the President. What's your take about the President's intervention and the way he's handled this matter?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Please, can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I'm talking about the speed with which both chambers of the National Assembly passed the bill today. What's your take about the President's intervention?
First of all, I think we need to commend the National Assembly. This bill must probably be the record holder, apart from the national anthem that we got not too long ago. But this certainly beats whatever record that national anthem bill must have set. Having said that, I'd like to congratulate not just Nigerian workers, but all Nigerians, that after all, we did not have to go through the stress of all the aftermath of strikes, lockout, and all of the rest before we got this bill passed. The federal government, certainly under the leadership of the President, demonstrated some kind of understanding to be able to take us to this point. But I just have one reservation concerning the way the thing ended before it became a deal. You see, there are three parties to this negotiation: labor, government, and the private sector. Sadly, except if I missed out anything, I did not hear at any point where the President consulted with the private sector after having agreed or done all the backroom work with labor. All we just had was labor met with government, and government has agreed 70,000. Meanwhile, as at the last meeting of the tripartite, 62,000 was what was on the table. If it was going to change, of course, the private sector should also be carried along. But somehow, as I said, maybe I missed that part of it. But we didn't hear anywhere in the private sector that government has invited the private sector for the same kind of meeting that took place with labor to take place. Of course, that is history now. The impact of it we will see in the implementation.
Indeed, Mr. Mokekan. Indeed, all eyes now are on the implementation, well, with the President assenting to it and then eventually implementation. But let's address, these concerns that the private sector and those in the informal sector are actually bringing up about their ability to pay the new wage and, of course, the effect the consequential adjustment would have on them.
You see, that is the next stage to it now, because at the end of the day, a bill is worthless if it is not implemented. And for it to be implemented, that's why you make sure you cross the T's and dot the I's in the process of passing it into an act. Having said that, now that this has happened, we wait for the details of the act to know exactly what the position will be, because the two components that I'm aware of now is the figure itself, which has moved from 30,000 to 70,000. That's about 133% jump. And you can be sure that, let's even forget the private sector for a moment. In the public sector, we see here that many of them only recently started to pay the 30,000. But I'm happy that they are now getting more money, and so they are committed as we understand, to pay whatever the minimum wage is that is agreed.
I hear you, Mr. Mokikon. You know, there are fears of possible retrenchment of workers. How do you think this can be addressed?
You see, the wage bill is certainly going to go up. And what that will tell employers is to now look inwards and figure out exactly how to make it up. You know, it's not very easy. Things are already very hard. It's not easy for most organizations to pass on the additional increase to consumers, to customers. You do that, you do it at your own peril. You will lose customers. And you lose customers, what does it translate to? Reduction in capacity. If there is reduction in capacity, what do you do? Your capacity includes both the equipment and labor. And if it comes to that, of course, it will be difficult to insist that organizations must hold on to their employees. Right. Of course, I have seen situations where individual organizations they get engaged with their employees, where we do intersectoral wage negotiation.
All right.
And then, of course, they find a solution to it.
So we hope that, you know, they can sit around the table and just look for some way, you know, to stay in the middle ground and just to resolve all of the issues concerned.
It's also helpful to add that the federal government also made a commitment during one of the meetings that the private sector will be given special attention, that there are certain issues that need to be addressed.
All right, Mr. Mokikon.
The private sector must be able to implement this.
All right, then. Human Relations Consultant Femi Mokikon, thank you so much for talking to us on TVC News at 7.